So, hi everybody. Today we will be finishing chapter 26 that we started last week, and we are going to review what we learned. So, as you know, chapter 26 begins a new, a new topic about depression, anxiety, sadness, and obviously how to fight that, because in the Torah it is forbidden to be sad. Sadness stops you from loving, stops you from connecting, stops you from having a real relationship with Hashem. So last week, I was actually looking over the videos from last week. We discussed, I asked you guys what you think sadness is, right? And, like we did with in the previous chapters, we learned about love, and we redefined love according to Torah, according to the Tanya, according to how the true meaning of love is. So now we will redefine the true meaning of sadness, okay? There is the good sadness, and there's the bad sadness, like in everything. Every emotion, we can have good and bad. So the Tanya tells us that sadness, that the negative sadness is actually a lack of emotion. Mm-hmm. Sadness, someone who is sad has an iron curtain around his emotion and he can't feel anything. In Hebrew, it's called timtum halev. It comes from being disconnected from God, from sinning, from different things, and it stops you actually from feeling. So you can't feel love, you can't experience life with this sadness. And you can't receive blessings, you can't connect to God. So of course it's against the Torah to be sad. Because the Torah, we just learned the importance of loving God, of feeling that connection to God. If you can't feel, then you're not keeping Torah. Okay? So in the previous chapters, we learned how to serve. The Tanya taught us how to serve Hashem, right? How to feel connected, how to create that love. That serving Hashem is through love and fear, and how we can create it or how we can awaken it from inside of us. Now, what is the Tanya talking about? Is the challenges that can come to serving Hashem. What is one of the biggest challenge is sadness. Sadness is the biggest challenge. It's the biggest tool that the Yetzer Hara, that the evil inclination uses to make you sin. It says that sadness can bring you so low to a place that nothing else can bring you low. But many people don't understand what sadness is or know what sadness is. There's a story of the Rebbe Rashab. He was the, I think, 5th Chabad rabbi, right? The Rebbe Rashab was the 5th Chabad rabbi. He had just became a rabbi. And someone came to see him. He had, issues and a lot of things going on. And he came to ask him for advice. And he comes and he pours his heart out. And when he finishes, the Rebbe Rashab tells him, sorry, I can't help you. Imagine this person traveled to see the Rebbe. He knows the Rebbe is a tzaddik. He knows the Rebbe can give him blessings. And he gets, I'm sorry, I can't help you. He leaves the office. And as soon as he leaves, he starts crying. He cries so much that he faints. When he s'évanouit. Mm-hmm. When he faints, the Rashab's brother, older brother, okay, because, the Rashab was chosen to be Rebbe, but he had other brothers. He passes by and he sees a Jew fainted. So he wakes him up, he gives him water. He says, what happened? Why are you crying? Why are you fainted? What happened? And he tells him the story. He said, I told over my challenges to the Rebbe Rashab, hoping he will help me. And he tells me he can't help me. And he continues to cry. And the brother, of course, the older brother thinks he knows everything. He walks in to his brother's office and he says, how can you not help this Jew? He's crying, he traveled, he came to you with his issues. How can you not help him? He said, even if you can't help him, right? Let's say you can't help him. Why can't you encourage him at least? Make him feel good. Here, you just tell him, I can't help you, and send him away. The Rashab doesn't say anything. He tells him, he listens, and he tells him, send him back in. He comes back in. The Jew comes back in. The Rashab prepares himself, and he gives him a bracha, blessing, and advice exactly what to do. And this Jew goes home, and he actually follows the advice, and he is able to fix the problem that he had. So the question is, what happened? Why is it that before he couldn't help him, he sends him away without nothing, and suddenly after his brother comes and tells him, he can help him? What happened in this story? In this story, this Jewish man came. He was in a state of sadness where his heart was blocked. So blocked, there was such a thick wall of barzel, it says a wall of iron, that he wasn't able to receive any blessing. There was the Rebbe Rashab had a blessing for him, had a new divine energy that he wanted to give it to him, but he couldn't. He couldn't help him because he was blocked. He blocked all his emotion. He blocked everything. Only once he left and he cried, through his crying and his breaking down, was he able to remove that wall, and he was able to get that blessing from the Rebbe and actually help his situation. So yes, so this is a sadness that is not good. But do you see how eventually he went to a real sadness where he actually felt the pain. He felt the pain was so strong that he fainted, okay? When you don't feel anything, it's a form of sadness. You know people that are lazy, you call them lazy. Lazy is just a symptom of sadness. Depression, the same thing. Depression is a negative thing. They're either living in the past, they're either not. Some people are depressed without feeling anything, okay? They have that wall that are blocking them. Once you feel pain, once you go through a certain sadness where you're in control, it's a good sadness. It's a sadness that's going to bring you some good, okay?
More joy. Even.
It's going to bring you more joy, exactly. So,
what are you drinking, Sterna, today?
It's a hot chocolate. So in number 1, in previous chapters, the Tanya taught us how to serve Hashem. What do these next few chapters talk about? So it talks about the challenges that can come when we serve Hashem. So we learned how to serve Hashem, how to love God, how to connect to God, how to fear God. Then we learned how to awaken that hidden love. And now we're learning about a different emotion that can actually stop us from serving God. So the challenges that can come when serving God, which is the biggest challenges, is sadness. Okay? The Tanya starts, okay, last week we read it in the Tanya. It starts about explaining two people that are fighting, right? Like what are those called? Those people that wrestle, the wrestling shows. It says a heavy heart will cause even the strongest of man to be defeated. So if there's one man who is so strong, who practiced so much, but if that day he has a heavy heart, he's sad, he will lose for sure. No matter how strong, even if he's stronger than the other man. Okay? To tell us that our neshama is actually stronger than our evil inclination. Our neshama is a strong light from God. So normally our neshama should be the one to defeat our evil inclination. But what makes it that we can't always win over the evil inclination is the sadness that we have within us. Sadness could come from things we are missing. Sadness can come from our failures. Sadness can be even fake. It could be even a fake sadness that the evil inclination is putting just to defeat you and to make sure that they win over your neshama and you connecting to Hashem. Okay, so then the Tanya explains two kinds of sadness. There's a sadness that comes from things that happen in the world. Okay, like someone is missing things that are essentials, like children, health, welfare, could be war, anything that happens in the world that you can't really control, that it comes from God, you know? So those things, there's one way of dealing with it. And then there's another kind of sadness that we're going to go more into this week, okay? So how does the Alter Rebbe tell us how to deal with sadness that comes from things that are a lack of essentials, right? When you're missing something that you need, that is actually important in life, but that you can't control. What does he tell us? Do you guys remember the story with Rabbi Akiva? Do you remember? Tu te rappelles l'histoire de Rabbi Akiva?
C'était quoi? Oui.
You remember how he, what?
Wasn't the Sandus Gamzule Tova?
Gamzule Tova, exactly. Rabbi Akiva had a lot of misfortunes that happened to him, but on one particular story, he was traveling with his donkey. I'm not going to re-say the story, but only after he saw how everything that happened was really something from the good. So what happens? What attitude should we have when we have something that happens bad that we cannot control? Okay, you know, someone passes away, a loss of money, someone's sick, you know, you can't get something you really need. All these things is to understand that there's two kind of goodness. There's the goodness of God that's revealed good, that we see, that's obvious. You know, you pray, you ask for something, you receive it, you have blessings in your life. And then there's good that comes in a form of negative. It's called a good that's mysterious. It comes from the mysterious side of Hashem. That good will always come into this world in a negative way. And that good, Moshe was questioning God, why do you have to come in such a mysterious way? Even if Moshe, who was the biggest tzaddik, who knew God more than any other human beings, who understood that really it was goodness, he still didn't accept it. So there's this paradox where good that comes from a higher place, you should not accept it. But at the same time, the way to deal with it is to say, Gamzu Tova. This, even if I may not see it, is also for a good reason. Just like the other goodness that I got in my life, I see it's clear. This also, I don't see it, but it's also good. It doesn't mean you should accept. It doesn't mean when you see somebody in pain, going through a challenge, you should tell them, don't worry, this is also for the good. No, never accept somebody else's pain. But how do you deal with it? How can you deal with it? A positive sadness is, yes, not to accept it, but to know that Gamzu Tova, this is also for our best. And this comes from a higher good that one day we will be able to understand.
We just can't understand it.
We can't understand it right now. Maybe one day, maybe we won't understand it until, you know, we pass away.
So basically, we should not try to understand everything. Ça aide beaucoup, je crois, de ne pas déprimer quand on cherche pas à tout comprendre, right?
Pas tout comprendre, and also to accept that it really is good. It's just we can't see it right now. It's higher than our understanding, higher than our comprehension. It comes from a level where Hashem is mysterious and we can't understand it. Even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't argue with Hashem. He wanted Hashem only to reveal his goodness in a revealed good, but Hashem said, no, this is not the way I work. So even to Moshe Rabbeinu.
Mais qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire, pardon,
Yeah, go ahead.
Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour se apaiser quand on comprend pas? On peut pas juste dire Gamzu Tova. Il y a trop d'injustice, il y a trop de...
C'est une question d'humilité, de dire ça ne dépasse, je comprends pas. Je comprendrai peut-être par la suite. Je ne comprends pas.
By Gamzu Tova, what does Gamzu Tova means? It's interesting because Kishem Shemevarech ala Tova Ken Mevarech al Hara. Like you bless the good things you have in your life, you should also bless the bad things. So what does it mean? It doesn't mean you should give blessings, like you should be thankful for the bad things in your life, just like the good things. It means you should understand that the bad things are really good, just like the good things in your life.
For the good, okay.
They're just not revealed yet. So apaiser, it's hard, it's painful. You don't want to accept this, we don't want it. But we know deep down inside that it's something that's good, that's higher than any other things you received in your life.
But you
And
don't
I'm
want to go through sadness. We said it's not.
So wait. There is sadness that you should go through. There is pain you should go through. The Torah tells us when you lose somebody, when somebody passes away, you have to mourn the person. You have to be sad. You have 7 days of Shiva and you have a year of mourning.
It's true.
So sadness is not negative as long as you're in control. We're going to learn how you can control it. When you take that pain, you feel the pain, and you tell yourself that it's painful, it's hard, but I know that this is for the good. That's a healthy way of dealing with it. So you have to have that paradox of not accepting it. And I'm sure many of you can relate that I can relate on a personal level. It's hard. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but the most hardest things in my life today, much later, much later, not when it's close, I realized how much it gets good it brought to me in a certain way. It doesn't mean that I want it to happen again. It doesn't mean that I would wish it upon anyone, but anyone who goes through abuse, goes through anything, and then goes through a healing process. The healing process is the pain where you feel it. After they're out of that healing process, they will all tell you that, like, I'm so thankful where I am today. I would never be the same if I hadn't gone through what I went through. And we all experience hard time. Experience is a deeper way of experiencing life. You can, I feel it on a personal level, like losing a parent when you're young. I experience emotions that I don't think I would have experienced, or I see some people my age cannot experience that because they didn't go through that process of pain.
Healing.
Pain and healing. So it has to, but you have to feel the pain.
And resilience.
The pain is the good hidden.
And it's
Hidden.
reveal les cohortes que tu soupçonnais.
Exactly. It brings strength that you would not have before. Exactly.
Tu les avais, mais ça c'était.
So number 3, as we were saying, what does this verse mean? Bechol etzev yemutar. In every sadness, there is a profit. So if sadness is used in the right way, if you go through the process of sadness by accepting the pain, okay, not negating and not pushing it away, accepting the pain, and then going through healing process by understanding that this pain was for your best, you will get a profit from it. So sadness in itself is not a good thing. Okay, the Torah says sadness in itself is not good. We should not be sad. But if you are able to control and be on top of your sadness and know how to, once you feel, you go through that sadness, that pain, you're able to remove it from you, then you will have a profit. The joy you will experience after will be greater than any other joy that someone experienced without going through sadness. Because what happens when one is sad? When one is sad, it removes the walls that are blocking all their emotions. It removes that, it says like that iron wall, like there's an iron wall around your emotion, and it removes it, just like in the story we heard that the Alter Rebbe couldn't help this person. He was sad, but he was sad in the wrong way. He was sad in that he was complaining and he couldn't see any good and he couldn't feel pain. He couldn't feel anything. He had no emotion. He was using sadness in a negative way. He was depressed. He came to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe said, I have the light for you. I have the bracha. I can't give it to you. You're not a vessel. You're not ready. Only after he left and he cried and he broke down and he, to the point that he fainted, that means the pain was so powerful that he fainted, was he able to receive that blessing because he removed that wall.
So if you want to help someone that is depressed or sad, what should you...
That's a very hard thing, because I wouldn't put that person, I don't feel comfortable to put that person in pain. But I know that someone who is depressed and has that blockage, you cannot help them. There's nothing you can do.
Déjà dit, je suis fatiguée de la vie. J'ai plus envie de regarder.
But there's nothing you could do.
Trying to bring my joy in this, et c'est quelque chose qui est très lourd à entendre, mais tu as le pouvoir de changer cette personne.
Comment? La personne, elle doit vouloir.
J'ai pleuré. Ça m'a tellement touchée that I cried because I was like, j'ai rien à...
And I bet that person didn't cry.
Non.
because they don't
cry
feel.
parce que j'ai
Elle a tout
reçu sa
fermé.
souffrance.
Elle n'est pas vivante.
Non, mais je pense que ma sensibilité
Oui.
a touché la personne à la fin.
דברים היוצאים מן
Et
הלב.
sans que j'ai rien dit, I hope that I helped. Mais c'est quelque chose qui est dur d'aider des gens
It's
sad,
very, very
des
hard.
gens depressed.
Depressed.
Et c'est notre rôle, je trouve, notre
On peut aider quelqu'un qui that's feeling the pain and that's open. You know, you feel it. I mean, you see it, and in psychology, they'll tell you all the time. There's some people they can't help. You have to want help, and most of those people will not look for the right places to help. But once they remove that wall, once they felt the pain, because they numb themselves, they like put it like a wall, you know. But in the Tanya, this is what it tells. It's talking in a spiritual way. That what happened is when we sin a lot or when we disconnect from God, we put like a wall around our heart that numbs us from any feelings, and then through feeling bad about being disconnected through God, we break that wall and we can be sad and then reconnect. So this is a spiritual aspect, but that aspect applies in any emotional and psychological examples. Anyone who goes through, you know, hardships or who's depressed for whatever reason, sometimes it's for no reason, right? When they say clinically depressed for no reason, they put a barrier around their emotion, and as long as they don't feel real sadness, you cannot help that person. And what is real sadness is when they feel pain, when they cry, when it hurts.
But we say that sadness is a lack of emotions. So
No, so that's the negative sadness.
the negative.
Okay, there's two sadness. There's the one that pulls you down.
Ouais, c'est pas pareil. Voilà,
L'habitude,
c'est ça.
c'est-
There's the sadness that brings you down, that makes you depressed, lazy.
Yeah.
You know,
Ouais.
you should never judge a person
Tu
who
vois
doesn't
loin.
want to do anything or who feels lazy, because it's really a symptom of sadness. And once they really feel the pain and they cut through that and they have a proper sadness, okay, and the Tanya is going to tell us how, then they can remove that wall, and so what happens when one is sad? You remove that wall of klipa that's blocking over your emotions, and it opens your heart. You know, it says there's nothing more complete than a broken heart. This is the explanation to this saying. There's nothing more complete than a broken heart.
So you remove by praying, I guess? Or?
No. So how do you remove it? So when one is sad, the true sad,
Yes.
how do you do it is when you take time to actually meditate, when you choose the time. You don't let it come.
C'est ça.
Any sadness that you let
make
it
a
come,
decision.
exactly. You make a decision tonight or today, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to be sad.
C'est ça.
And I'm going to think about all the things that are bad and I'm going to feel it. That's when you're going to be sad, and you can cry. Like, it can be a healthy therapy. You know, I don't know if it exists. If
Yeah, absolutely.
there is, okay? Then that sadness is going to break away the walls. Okay, number 5, King Solomon said that wisdom surpasses foolishness as light surpasses darkness, right? That just like when you have a foolishness, when you see a fool or when you are foolish, then you're able to enjoy wisdom after that. Just like when you have darkness, you're able to enjoy light, okay? But if you only have light, you won't enjoy the light as much as you enjoy it if you didn't go through the darkness. So this too applies to sadness and joy. You can only be joyful once you experience real, true sadness.
Il dit souvent que les gens heureux, qui paraissent heureux, c'est des gens tristes.
Yeah, les comédiens, no?
Oui, les humoristes.
The clowns and comedians are known to be
Yes.
the saddest people,
Yeah.
but they cover up. I feel like they don't have emotion.
You could only be joyful
Once you experience true sadness, okay? So now we have to understand what true sadness is, because Dorit said, you know, I said sadness is when you have no emotions, but true sadness is when you do feel. You feel pain, you feel anger, you feel sad, you feel worried. You let those emotions go through. You know, someone once told me something interesting, and I applied it, and I was like blown away that we're not taught. I remember, like, I used to do electrolysis I still do it once in a while, but I remember when I first went, it was so painful, and I would like.
C'est quoi le laser?
Non, c'est pas le laser, c'est électrolyse. C'est comme, I don't know if you guys know, it's like a needle
Parfois, électrique.
with an electric shock. Anyways, it's very, no, it's just to remove it, kills the root. Anyways, it was very painful and I would resist to the pain. And she's like, why are you resisting? You're not helping it. It's not like, just let it go and it's going to be less painful. And when she told me that, I actually let go and I calmed down and now it's not painful. And I was like, I wonder if that's what we do when we go in pain. Instead of accepting pain, we kind of like resist and we don't let it come.
Oh, yeah.
And it ends up being more painful, or sometimes we even block it away and we don't feel anymore. So why am I saying that? Because there is healthy sadness, there is healthy pain. Let it come. And it's the same with childbirth, by the way. You can't stop it. You need to give birth.
Experience in it.
Exactly. Okay. Sorry, Donna. I don't want to scare you, but by accepting the pain, experiencing it, sometimes you might think it's going to be more painful, so you want to stop it. You know, you clench your, but by letting go and experiencing it, that is true. That's the only way to get to the blessing, which is a child. But I'm saying in terms of an emotion, when you have an emotion that comes or a challenge that comes that's so painful, instead of resisting, let it come through, let you feel it, let yourself experience it to eventually experience the real blessing that's coming through this big challenge. So yes, so what advice does Rabbi Schneur Zalman give for dealing with sadness from lack of physical essentials, children, livelihood, health? I mean, I gave 3 examples, but it can be so many things that are out of our control. The way to, this is exactly how we deal with it. We let it come, we experience the pain, and then we know that really it's a pain that will bring us gamzu letova, that is something that's higher than greatness, exactly like childbirth. Exactly like childbirth. It's painful. The only difference is childbirth, we know what's going to happen after. When we have a challenge, we don't know. But think of it as you know what, it's a good, think of it as, okay, I'm birthing a new blessing in my life.
But
it's painful. I have to go through the pain, but it's a new blessing that's going to come into my life.
C'est vrai, souvent sur le coup on comprend pas et après on dit oh my God, en fait ça m'est arrivé pour que ça m'arrive.
Yeah.
You know, and wow,
Chaque
it's
fois,
magical.
il y a une naissance qui vient. C'est la
Clairement, tu as fait
Exactly.
une belle, beau parallèle.
Without realizing that was not part of the plan, but it really, really goes so well together. And the story of Rabbi Akiva, number 7, Gamzu Litova, we discussed it already. We're not going to go. And now I want to focus on there's a different kind of sadness, okay? This sadness is very important because it's a day-to-day thing we deal with. And you can go in your Tanya. I'm going to read a little bit in the Tanya. I'm going to share my screen. No.
Are you answering question number 8?
So we're going to, but we're first going to read inside the text. Donna, do you have the text? Okay, good. And Cheryl and Marie, you have the text? Okay. So go inside chapter 26. Let's see if you can find, for this reason, our sages stated that the verse, those who love him shall be as the sun when it comes out in its might. V'lachen amru rabbeinu, zicharnam levracha, ki hasmechim b'yisurim alehem hakasuv aymar ve'ohavav ketzeis hashemesh b'gvurasei. Okay, so this is a beautiful saying that our sages say, that people, that those who love him shall be as the sun when it comes out in its might. Okay, what does it mean? It means the people that are able to rejoice when negative things happen to them, when they're going through challenges. It's going to be just like the sun when it comes out of its shell. Right now we don't experience the sun in its full might, okay? If the sun was removed from its shell, it would burn everyone, okay? So God puts a shell to protect us. So too, God is like the sun. He gives us blessings, and he puts a shell around him in order for us to experience God without being burnt, okay? So those who understand that their physical things in life are not as important as their connection with God, they're going to be able to rejoice even through their sufferings, even when they're missing money, even when they're going through something where they're lacking in their life and physical things, because they know that what's more important is their connection to God, and they know that really what God is doing is something much greater than they understand. So the sun, which is something that is physical, it uses that example that when Mashiach comes, God is going to remove that shell from the sun, and we'll really be able to experience the sun in its full might, which represents that we'll be able to experience a side of God that's greater than our understanding. Okay? So, yes.
Please redefine what it is to rejoice in suffering.
What it means to rejoice in suffering is exactly what we said. That just like childbirth, you know that this suffering is going to bring to a blessing. Whenever you have a challenge, instead of being upset, someone lost money, they'll be upset. Oh, I've lost my money, my house burnt. They're going to be upset because their love is really limited to physical, to very material. But someone who really loves God is able to understand that even if their material is suffering, there's something greater that's happening that is connected.
Au point de se réjouir de la souffrance.
Je sais pas réjouir. It says rejoices in suffering. Yeah, no.
Quelqu'un te dit, t'as perdu l'argent, Baruch Hashem, t'as eu la vie sobre. C'était le signe papa. Imagine.
But it's a hard thing to rejoice in suffering. By the way, it's personal suffering. Never rejoice in people's suffering.
No,
it's talking about your personal suffering, that you're able to still be happy even after all these things happen to you. That means you really love God and you're not attached to physical and materialistic, that it's not your priority. That even if you have a great loss in physical, which is understandable if someone's sad, but if you're a true lover of God, why is he called the lover of God? Because he's able to go above his lack of physical, his loss of physical needs, whatever it was, and connect to God and still be happy and still rejoice. So that's called a true lover of God. And I don't know if you saw at the picture, when life is about love, then worry is a stranger. I thought when I saw this picture, I don't know if you saw it, but when life is about love, when you love God so much, your worry is you don't have worries. It really helps you deal with depression, with worries, and it goes above that. So why is someone called a lover of God? Because he is able to understand that even if he lost whatever it is physically, he got a stronger connection to God, and this is called a true lover of God. This is how you can really face that challenge of sadness.
Tu remplaces ton love par God. Hein? And life is about God.
About love. But love, the ultimate love is God. No, ma'am, this is good love. We're talking about the good love. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, so let's continue in the Tanya. For one's joy in affliction, so one's joy in suffering stems from the fact that being near to Hashem is dearer to him than anything of the life of this world. Like it says, for your loving kindness is better than life. B'kirvas Hashem hi beyeser se'es umayla. Now the nearness to God is infinitely greater and more sublime in the hidden world, for there the concealment of his power is lodged, and is also the most high abides in secrecy. It says that Hashem is closer, there's a bigger connection to God in his hidden world. So suffering is kind of you experiencing God's hidden world.
Which is
mysterious world.
Oh,
it's things that we don't we experience it through suffering. Anything negative in your life is you experiencing a part of God that's concealed, that's part of his higher God. So when you're able to rejoice about it, you're able to experience God in the highest, closest form.
Mysterious way. It's
another way of connecting to God in a really high form that seems so contradictory because it's negative. Like, how could God be negative? God is only good.
Mais les gens pieux, très Sandy, qu'est-ce qu'ils ressentent?
Eux, ils peuvent voir le bon.
Non, est-ce qu'ils ressentent la peine? J'ai jamais
They don't, because they see.
Ils ressentent la peine pour les autres. C'est
Mais
de l'empathie, c'est pas de la
they don't.
tristesse.
So it says Tzadikim are able to understand how it's good, so they don't feel the pain. They don't feel the pain. It says, I actually read it, they don't feel the pain when they're good. It says when Rabbi Akiva was actually he was one of the 10 martyrs being killed by the Romans, they took a metal brush with fire and they were peeling off, and he was rejoicing. So obviously he was able to understand and experience something we can't understand. Like they can see how God's mysterious world, which is negative in our eyes, is actually good. They can experience that, we can't. So it goes.
Accept everything.
It's not that they accept; they're able to understand also. Once you understand, c'est comme quelqu'un qui accouche. If the person doesn't know they're giving birth, they're so scared. The pain is so much greater. But if they know they're giving, it actually happened to a friend of the secretary of a friend of mine. Who didn't know she was pregnant for 9 months, which is the weirdest thing, and gave birth, was super in pain. I'm sure the pain thought she was dying. Meanwhile, she was having a baby. It was the weirdest thing. It's a true story. But if you know you're having a baby, the pain is not as bad because you know
you still want to die.
You still go through pain. But you understand. Yeah, but why do people get pregnant again? No, it's okay. It's because they know.
Forget. That's what
no, because the result is so much worth it. So too tzaddikim, they experience that kind of understanding when it comes to pain and suffering. They don't feel the suffering as much because they know the goodness. They want to connect to that part of God, which is a high, super high part of God. Yeah. Now, let's continue reading. ועל כן זכר לצאת השמש בגברסה לעשית לווי שהיא יציאת חמה מניר תקה שהיא מכוסה בי בעולם הזה ולעשית תסגל למחסויה. Therefore, he is found worthy of seeing the sun emerging in its might in the world to come, when the sun will emerge from the sheath in which it is hidden in this world and will then be revealed. Okay, so this is talking about someone who rejoices in suffering, in his own suffering. He will be able to see in the world to come, when Mashiach comes, the sun being removed from his shield. Okay, that means he will be able to understand the goodness that really came from this negative experience. Dayinu she'az yizgale alma dekasya ve'yizrach ve'yar begilui rav ve'atzim lechol ha'chaisim bai ba'elam hazeh u'mistaifefim v'tzilu itzel ha'chachma she'u bechina sel v'lai ara tavaniras. This means that the hidden world will then be revealed, and it will shine forth and glow in a great and intense revelation upon all who seek refuge in this world, taking shelter in his shadow, the shadow of wisdom, which is in a state of shade as opposed to revealed light and goodness. This is sufficient explanation for that understanding. Okay, so now we just spoke about the pain that happens to someone from lack of physical things, sufferings that we can't control. Okay? So how to deal with it? By understanding that it really comes from a higher place of God, and by being able to accept it, even if it's painful, because we know that it's a higher form of good. Now there's a different sadness that the Tanya talks about here. Ha'atzvus memile dishmaya tzarich lashis eitzes benafsha lipater mimeno. As for sadness connected with heavenly matters, one must seek ways and means of freeing oneself from it. Ein tzarich leimar bishas aveda shetzarich la'aved Hashem besimcha betuv levav. That this applies to the time of one's divine services is self-evident, for one must serve God with joy and gladness of heart. Ella afilu mi shehu bal asakim v'derech eretz im noifel lo etzev udaga mimilei deshmaya bishas asakav. But even one who is occupied in business and worldly affairs, should there descend upon him any sadness or anxiety upon heavenly matters during his business affair, it is certainly a trick of the evil inclination in order to lure him afterwards into lusts, God forbid, as is well known. Okay? So let me explain. Over here, he talks about a different sadness, okay? So there's a sadness we understood of misfortune, of things that happen to us that we can't control. And then there's another sadness. When you're at work, when you're in a random place and you get a thought suddenly that tells you, you know, you're so bad at this, you failed at this, look what you did. That sadness that reminds you of your failures, that sadness that brings you down, all those negative thoughts, right? That comes at the wrong moments. This sadness is false sadness. It's the evil inclination that's bringing it to you at the wrong moments in order to bring you to sinning. Because you'll notice that right after these thoughts, you're going to look or seek for pleasure. You're going to look for something to bring you pleasure. And that is proof that is false sadness, because it comes at the wrong moments. And right after, it's followed by something that you need to please yourself with. Okay, like, you know, like those people that are constantly dieting, and, you know, at random moments they'll be thinking, oh, I'm so bad at dieting, I'm so you know, I'm so fat, I'm so this, and suddenly they're going to go and make themselves feel good. They'll eat a piece of cookie or a cake because I feel so bad, you know. That is false. These thoughts are false. They come from the evil inclination, and they're only there to lead you to do something pleasurable for yourself, selfish, to go and do something that's not good for you. So what is the difference between sadness that comes from heavenly misfortune and sadness that comes from our own failures? Sadness that comes from heavenly fortune is real, okay? How to deal with it, we read. But sadness that comes from your own failures are false, are completely false. They're just there to bring you down.
Mais attends, mais c'est légitime d'avoir de la tristesse, des échecs personnels.
Mais if these thoughts come at the wrong moment, when you're in, it says like during prayer or during your middle of praying, and during prayer it's known that that's when all your thoughts are going to come. All these negative thoughts are going to say, who do you think you are? You think you're praying? Like all these negative thoughts are going to come. Or during, you know, it says in the Tanya, it says during business, you're in the middle of business meeting, you're in the middle of working on the computer, and these negative thoughts come. If they're coming at a random time, when it's not supposed to, when you're not even thinking about it, then they're wrong, they're false. What do you do with it? How do we know that sadness from spiritual failures comes from the evil inclination? So we know because they come at the wrong moment, not when you're doing anything connected to it, and they're followed by a desire to please yourself, whatever it is, like to eat a cookie or whatever it is, to do something like just to give you pleasure. Okay, so how do we know that these come from the evil inclination? Because they're going to always pop in the wrong time. You're in a meeting, you're working, you're praying, you're learning when you're learning, it's a little bit hard, but you're in a moment where you're not planning this, comes at the wrong moment, and it's going to be followed. We know that this is from the evil inclination, and they're wrong. You should push them away. So what tools does the Alter Rebbe give? And this I'm going to give by heart, okay? The Alter Rebbe tells us that these thoughts are completely false. What do you tell yourself? He says, you should tell yourself, okay, I hear you. You're right. I'm not good at this. I'm failing at my diet. I'm not, you know, being kind enough. Whatever the thoughts are saying, say. But right now is not the time to think about it. I will set a time when I'm ready to think about it. And during the day, sometime during the day, it's very healthy to take your time when you control, when you choose to meditate over what you're not happy about, over what you failed at, over what lack of connection you have to Hashem, whatever it is that makes you sad, to think about it, to be sad, and to know that after you meditated and you thought about it, you can remove that sadness. And once you remove that, you can move on, and it will help you advance in your life and not repeat that mistake that really bothers you. But it's only when you control, when you decide when you want to think about it. If they come at the wrong moment when you did not decide, then they're coming from the evil inclination and they're completely false and they're not going to help you. They're just going to bring you down. They're going to bring you down to the point where they're going to just lead you to try to do something pleasurable for yourself. It's a whole scheme from the evil inclination, and it's only to bring you to do an avera, to bring you to disconnect from God, to bring you to do a desire and a pleasure that is unhealthy to you, to your body, or to your neshama. So you talk to these thoughts. You tell these thoughts, you're right, but it's not the right moment right now to think about it. I will decide when I want to think about it. Because if you do, this sadness can bring you down to a place, like I said in the beginning, to a place that nothing else can bring you down to, a really, really low place. And that is the point of the evil inclination. It brings you this sadness in order to bring you down. But if you do it right, if you choose your time when you want to think about it, you're in control. You cry even about it. You break the walls that sadness created. Then you could let go and you can move on. Exactly.
Can I
So what tools does Rabbi Shneur Zalman give us to deal with sadness that comes from our failures and disconnection to God? He tells us any negative thoughts that come when is not planned, those are not good. You tell them, I hear you, you're right, but this is not the time now. And make sure to set a time when you are ready to think about them, to meditate, in order to be able to move on and to do something about it. So yeah, don't ignore them completely, but you have to be in control. You have to be the one who chooses when you want to be sad about those things. I think that's a mind-blowing tool. I'm reading this for the first time, and I'm like, wow, okay, I don't think I set time aside during the day, but it's
to be sad. Wow.
To be sad. Can you imagine?
On purpose, like to let go.
So this is how we can see that sadness is a good thing. And I shared on the Tanya class a beautiful article of can you make yourself happy? I'll let you guys read it, but in short, it says that nothing can make you happy. Don't wait. There's a beautiful article that I shared on the group. You'll see it on the WhatsApp group. And the question, it's written by a rabbi I admire, Rabbi Simon Jacobson. Yeah. He says, can you make yourself happy? And in his article, he writes how people have the wrong impression that, things will make them happy, and they're constantly waiting for different situation, or they say, oh, when I have this, I'm going to be happy. But there's nothing that can make you happy. The happiness is actually, he writes that happiness is not a verb, it's a noun. It's by changing your attitude and putting yourself in a healthy mindset that happiness could come to you.
So it exists, happiness.
Yeah, we did say. For sure.
Nothing can make you happy.
No, nothing could make you happy.
Yeah,
but you can make yourself happy. You could put yourself in a positive state that will bring eventually joy. So it's very interesting because we tackled love. Okay, and I know that Dori challenged that emotion a lot. What does love mean? How do you love? We learned about how to create love, or how to dig deep and find that love within. And now we're tackling sadness, a different emotion. What is the negative one? What is the positive one? And how sadness could really bring us to joy. And the whole point of this is really to bring us to joy. And just to end off, this week is Purim, the month where we are commanded to be happy, okay? To be happy. So what is it? We are ordered to put ourselves in a healthy mindsets in order to feel joy. And I brought this. I don't know if you see, it's Queen Esther. And if you turn around, it's the wife of Haman. Yes, here it's Mordechai, and if you turn around, it's Haman. And the whole story of Purim is that God is not mentioned once in the story of the Megillah. what the Jews experience in Purim is a higher form of God. They didn't. In Hanukkah, we see God. It was revealed. The miracle was revealed. In Purim, it was done in a natural way. They experienced God in His mysterious way, and that's why the Megillah doesn't mention once the name of God, because He was hidden throughout the story. They didn't see it. It came all through natural experience. I mean, it was through Queen Esther who helped the people, but it came from God. It came from a higher source of God, and this is the challenge where we should be happy. Things that are revealed, that are out clear, it's easy to be happy about. It's easy to be joyful about. It's the things that are hidden, that comes from the mysterious part of God, that are higher than our comprehension, that are higher than our knowledge, that are hard to experience happiness. And this is where the challenge comes from. This is where we have to experience joy. And it's not for no reason that Adar is right in the middle or at the end of winter. It's a hard month. It's the most challenging month. My husband always tells me it's a month where for some reason it's the most challenging things happen. But that's when you have to experience joy. By putting yourself into that attitude of Gam Zune Tova, whatever happens is really coming from a higher part of God, a higher goodness that we don't understand. And that's when you can experience true joy. So I hope you all experience true joy this week on Purim, and that we can see you, whoever's coming to our Purim party, that we will see you. And yeah, and if not, just have a really joyful week. Bye, guys.
Wow.